Who are we missing? Richie. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Looks like most of us are here. We're going to begin. Councillor Valdez mentioned she was not going to be here, so we'll just see if Councillor Manny Martinez and Councillor John Ritchie get on as soon as possible. So we will go ahead and begin. It is now 5:01. I hereby call this finance workshop meeting for discussion purposes to order. Can we take a roll call and determine a quorum, please?
Councillor Salazar Torres.
Present.
Councillor Vigil.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Salazar.
I'm present.
Councillor Benavides.
Present. But I don't know. I could have sworn I'd seen it here, but maybe they're out.
Councillor Manuel J. Martinez. Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez.
I'm here.
Councillor John L. Ritchie. We have a quorum. Oh, and Mayor Javier Sanchez.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. As we discussed last week, we went through the general budget. This week, what I wanted to do is go over only the enterprise fund. So I believe that Ms. Ortiz has the slides ready to go in the order that she's going to be using them. So I'll now move this on to and give the floor to Ms. Ortiz and City Manager Javier Martinez.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. Does everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So as Mayor said, the last two work sessions, we've been focusing on the general fund. So today we're going to start in reverse order and start with the enterprise. The first topic on the slides will be a public utility fund. From there, we'll go ahead and discuss water and then wastewater. So from here, I'll go ahead and yield the floor to Director, Ms. Jessica Ortiz. I believe she was having trouble logging on, so let's see if she comes on here in a bit.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. Thank you for being with us this evening. I apologize, I was having some technical difficulties. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
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 Okay, so before you, we have a working version of the enterprise budget looking at water specifically. We just sent out the bills yesterday, so got all the numbers posted. So these do not reflect any of the final posting numbers as we're still working on reconciling those accounts. But as a start, we can look at our revenues for the water fund. And this is looking at an annualized return based on 92% of the year elapsed. Because like I said, revenue just posted, all of our revenues and expenditures just posted. So looking at our government gross receipts water, we have actual budget of 125,843. We are projecting revenue of 124,479. And like I said, that's based on an annualized return. Charges for services, we have water sales in the amount budgeted for FY20, FY21 interim budget of $2,627,309. Looking at a projected revenue of $2,582,313. Penalties, interest in water, we have a budget of $66,943. We've collected $44,177, and we are projecting revenue of $48,019. Bulk water sales, we budgeted $27,506. We've collected $27,025. And based on an annualized return, we are projected to receive $29,375. Water connection charges, we have budgeted $123,000. We had collected $66,000, and we are looking at a projected revenue of $72,646. Reconnect fees, the budget is $21,067. We've collected $4,650, looking at a projected revenue of $5,000. Water testing fees, we had budget of $600. We didn't collect on any of that. Projected revenue of $0, bringing us to a total charges for services of $2,737,407. Our miscellaneous revenues were budgeted at $10,549. We've collected $5,308. We are looking at a projected revenue of $5,769. Insurance recoveries, we didn't have anything budgeted this year. However, we did receive insurance claims for some vehicles that were damaged, the amount of $11,695. Investment income has a budget of $34,384. We've collected $29,753. Therefore, a projected revenue of $32,341. Inactive status, $186, so projected revenue of $185. And then OCL charge, which is out of city limit charge surcharge, is a budget of $19,628. We have collected $17,951 for a projected revenue of $19,512. We have, like the general fund, we have carried over prior year cash balance. So in this amount, in this fund, we have $733,758, bringing us to a total fund revenue of $3,666,163. If we subtract out that prior year cash, the budget is $2,932,405, and I apologize that that number didn't show up on the worksheet, but so that would be the amount without prior year cash. Do you have any questions in regards to our revenues for the water fund?
Yes, Ms. Ortiz, I had just a couple questions. First of all, if you could talk a little bit about where we're at with regard to, the COVID situation. I know that we did not cut a lot of people's services. I know that many people had late fees or, were assessed late fees. And I just kind of wanted to know where we were on balance with regard to, letting some of those go or what wound up happening with that. And if City Manager Javier Martinez needs to give us some more, color on where we're at, I think that would be very helpful. And then in particular, what I would ask next is with the expected water sales to be $2.582 million. I think you mentioned year-to-date actual was 2375. I just sort of wanted to know what your feelings were with regard to matching that number.
Yeah, so in regards to the COVID, we did have a couple of months that we didn't do any disconnects, but penalties were still assessed, as we cannot waive any penalties on the accounts. That's per ordinance.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, you were looking at the 2.3. Where did you get that number from?
Under water sales, at the close to the very top, we had the budget of 2.627. Year-to-date actual was 2.375, and the projected for the full year is 2.582.
Yes, that like I mentioned is based on an annualized return. So we had collected as of May month end $2.3 million. And if we annualize that, we are projected to collect $2,582,000. As I mentioned, numbers just posted yesterday as the bills just went out, and we're closing up the month. So we are working on our reconciliation. So we will have the definite numbers by the end of the week.
Okay. We have a question from Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Jessica, going down to the insurance recoveries, you're talking about 11,695. And then on the next line, you have a estimated of 12,712. Can you give me an idea of why you think we're gonna have recoveries in the water at that amount? Is there a reason why we're expecting that kind of a money on that line item?
Yes, so we did receive actual monies of $11,695, and that was for the vehicles that were damaged during the Christmas break that belonged to. So we did recover that money from the insurance, and I believe that's all that we are going to recover. We did receive about 3 checks, so the reason I had $12,712 was just based on an annualized return. But I think that's all the money that we're receiving. So 11,695 would be the final number that we received for insurance recoveries.
Okay, so on the money that we received, did we not put in anything to cover the stolen money that happened at the water department?
So on that, we received money from, so we recovered the cash portion of it, which was about $5,000. And the remainder was about $11,000, I believe, in checks. So all of those checks were rewritten and resubmitted to the city. So the insurance,
Everybody did that.
yes.
So where did that 5,000 get posted that we recovered in the cash?
I'd have to go back and verify exactly which account we posted it to.
Okay. That's all I have for right now. Thank you.
And for a follow-up, did we already spend the money to fix the vehicles that were damaged on that money that we're going to get insurance recoveries from?
Yes, we have already fixed those vehicles and they are back in service.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a question from Councillor John Ramon Vigil.
Thank you. Jessica, I understand the out-of-city limit surcharge has a base fee. What is that base fee?
I would have to get you that exact amount. I don't want to misspeak for it, but I can verify and get that number back to you.
And how many residents actually take, actual non-city residents take advantage of this system? I think it's around 400 or something.
I can verify that with the utility department and get back to you on that number as well.
Okay.
Councillor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Just kind of follow up to your water sales. I know that since we aren't doing any type of disconnecting or at this time or notices at this time, have you run a report just to see what we're at as far as 30, 60, and 90-day past dues to see where that number might end up changing on those 30 days or up to 90 days past dues?
We do, looking at our aging report, we have about $900,000 in the 90 days arrears or greater.
What was that dollar amount again?
It's roughly about 900,000.
Is that taken into factor for the 2.582, or is that included in that figure?
No, that is just based on an annualized return. So if you look at the year-to-date actuals of $2,375,000, that's just taking that amount divided by the time elapsed, 92% of the year, because we hadn't billed for the month of June. So that's just looking at that number and doing an annualized return. So that's a projected amount of $2,582,000, just looking on what we've actually received.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Seeing no further questions, Ms. Ortiz.
I have a
you can
question,
continue.
Mayor, follow-up. I'm sorry.
Councillor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Jessica, I'm curious if we've worked on a policy in the water department, or if you know of a policy that has been worked on that has been updating the amount that we charge for bulk water. I know that we stopped selling bulk water at some point during the last fiscal year. And I know one of the reasons was because it was at the same price that it was costing us to produce the water to the customer. So I think at some portion, at some time frame, it was stopped. And the reason I'm asking this is because I've had a lot of inquiry from people now that the swimming pools are closed. People have purchased swimming pools in their yard and they've asked if it's feasible for the city to sell them water. And I just direct them to the water department. But I know that we had stopped doing that. I know that it's plausible that we could probably make some money with that if the supply allows for a fee to be developed that's fair to the public.
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez. So you're correct, Councilor Peggy. So there is talks right now. So with our Public Works Director, Stephen Trujillo, is working with that right now to find an adequate charge for both non-potable water. Right now, it's the same rate. And we found this out primarily when we were supplying fresh water, potable water to the village of Chama the past month. So we're looking into that.
Thank you, sir.
Councilor Denise Benavides.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. I think this is probably more for City Manager Martinez. As Jessica threw out that dollar amount of accounts 90 days past due, I was in shock for a second there. What are we doing to, if anything, collect any of those amounts? And I know we're in the midst of COVID, but what do we do? At what point do we turn people's water off? Because that amount's huge.
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Councilor Denise Benavides. So we did waive disconnects for the month of April, May, and June. So notices were sent out this month for disconnects. So I've been getting a lot of phone calls from the public as to how to rectify this and get their water services from getting disconnected. So per ordinance code 300, it gives the city manager discretion to allow the public to come in and sign and get it on a payment plan. That way their water doesn't get disconnected, and we work to a goal to get these huge balances decreased, if not eliminated. So we've been working on that. I know that the past 3 months, we waived disconnect fees, because of the COVID-19 issues and so many people unemployed. And so we've been working with a lot of people all this week to get them and come in. And so what we do is we generate an agreement that they notarize, and we come up with a payment plan that they'll pay on a monthly basis on top of their normal water usage. So we definitely work with the public. Like I say, I have a list being generated right now of customers calling me to get this rectified. So we are working on that to lower this cost of debt or delinquency.
Thank you for that response, City Manager. Do we have someone that actually monitors those payment plans to assure that those individuals are making those payments?
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Councilor Denise Benavides. So yes, that would be our customer service manager, Danielle Bustos. She has all these notarized documents where the payment plan is, and it's set on there. And the documentation does say that they have to pay a fixed amount every month on top of their normal water bill. If they do not follow this, they're liable to get their water disconnected. So she tracks that. Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor, thank you for bringing that up. I didn't know if anybody else was going to bring it up like that. And so that we don't hamper on it for too long, just a final question. Is any of that bad debt that needs to be written off of our asset, of our balance sheet?
Honorable Mayor, yes, the recommendation from our auditors would be to write off any debt that we don't anticipate collecting. So that's something that we need to work on as a management team and decide what's our threshold. But anything really past 4 years is deemed uncollectible. We did contract with a debt service, a debt collection agency at one point. And the return from those collections was very minimal. That company has now filed for bankruptcy, so they are not able to collect on our behalf at this point.
Okay, well, we can move on, but we'll work on that certainly. Thank you very much. You can continue. Thank you.
Okay, so seeing no other questions on the revenue portion, we will move on to the expenditures. Looking at our full-time positions, we had a budget for FY20 and our FY21 as 865. We have actually spent 499,634. We are looking at a proposed budget of 820,860. And the reason for such the big variance in the year-to-date actual in comparison to the proposed budget is because we have everyone budgeted at the max based on the pay plan that was approved. And right now we have a lot of entry-level employees. So we do have some salary savings in that line item specifically. As I mentioned, you can see we spent about 500,000. The budget is 820, so a difference about 300K. Overtime wages, we have budgeted at 50,000. They have spent 35,946. And please keep in mind these numbers, the expenditure numbers need to be updated with final numbers as payroll just closed out the month today. And so, like I said, we will have updated numbers by the end of the week. Standby pay, we have a budget of 21,129. We've spent 14,250, so a flat budget on that. Along with our taxes, FICA, PARA, our healthcare, retiree healthcare, unemployment, and workers' comp. You can see that not much changes were incurred in that. Also, I did want to mention that in this full-time position line item, we have budgeted for the city attorney because he was charging at one point to the fund. So we had him budgeted at 12.5% in water and in wastewater, which equates to about 35,000. And since the current attorneys that we have now don't provide any services for water, we do have our own water attorney, Stein and Brockman. We can go ahead and reduce that cost if that's the choice of the council, to go ahead and remove AJ from the projections in that line item. Under
before you go on, Ms. Ortiz, this is Javier. I just had a question. Is Stein and Brockman in these numbers or in the expenses somewhere on the next page?
No, they are not. They are in
No.
525 fund under the water rights fund. So there's a separate fund
Okay.
for water attorney.
Okay, just so long as it's still within the enterprise fund there for them to be able to charge and then get paid from.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on. We have mileage reimbursement of $1,500. So a flat budget. Per diem was a flat budget of 3,000. Maintenance, buildings and structures was 119,600. However, we moved that 113,000 because that was the initial money that we had encumbered for the nitrate system. So that actually belongs down in equipment and machinery due to the cost, and it is, considered a capital asset. So we need to make sure and capture that in the correct line item for capitalization. So we reduced that line item by 113,000 and put it into equipment and machinery, where you can see below the change in that. So that was just a move in line items. We have maintenance contracts, flat budget of 4,900. Maintenance, grounds and roadways of projected of 55,000. And that's just kind of looking at their budgets, seeing that they only spent 37,000. We're trying to be creative and move monies into the line items that they need to be in. Maintenance vehicle is projected at 28,000. Maintenance equipment at 39,000. The audit contract, so this is for our annual audit, 20,000. Professional service.
Ms. Ortiz, before we move on, I believe Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez has a question. I didn't know if it was appropriate now or later. Counselor?
No, Mayor, I'll wait until she's done. Thank you.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Continue, Ms. Ortiz.
Okay, professional services at 13,000, contractual services at 193,849. Office supplies flat 15,400, medical supplies 2,000, field supplies 69,000, janitorial supplies at 5,000, chemical supplies to treat all of our water at 30,000, non-capital furniture $1,000, non-capital equipment at $5,000, safety equipment at $11,000, uniforms is $12,000, gas and diesel fuel 24,000, communication costs of 10,000, bank charges, financing fees of 15,000, employee professional development at 10,000, government grocery receipts paid of 80,000, water conservation fee of 10,000. So these government grocery receipts paid and the water conservation fee, those are actually paid to tax and rev based on the amount of usage that we use on a monthly basis. Our insurance premiums, as we mentioned, overall went up 20%. So we've increased the budget to reflect that increase. So 113,000. Postage cost of 22,000. Freight and courier of $500, printing and publishing of $32.50, advertising of 3,000, photocopying costs of 500, rent of equipment and machinery of 6,500, rent of land and buildings of 20,000, dues are $1,000, telephone costs are $12,000, natural gas of 1,000, electric utility charges of 200,000. Equipment and machinery, here you'll see the increase of the 113,000 that we moved down from maintenance, buildings and structures. And that's for the total of the nitrate system, 330,000. And then we just recently paid off, we had our last payment for the Vector truck of 63,717, which we just paid off now on July 1st. Then, so that's looking at our total expenditures for water. So the proposed expenditures is $2,848,337. Looking at our transfers, we have 200,000 transferred out to water rights, and this, Mayor, is where we capture the services for Stein and Brockman. We have
Okay,
transfers out for general fund administrative fees of 385,000. We have a loan with NMFA for $13,726. We have another loan with NMFA, the Espanola 1213 loan for $94,129. And then we have the other loan, which is now for the new metering system of $159,346. So with those transfers, total fund expenditures is projected at $3,700,539. If we look at our revenue less our expenditures, which does include the prior year cash of $733,758, we are looking at a deficit of $34,375. If we increase our transfers to the general fund, as we had discussed last week, that would bring our variance to a negative $84,375.
Before we go to any questions, could you refresh our memory with regard to the extra $50,000 in the transfer from the enterprise fund out?
Yes, so that was the proposal, the two proposals that were given last week for the general fund to help balance the fund. So we have one proposal showing transfers in, increasing transfers in, increasing prior year cash, furloughs. And then we had the other projection where it was just, taking out the 9 positions and going actual versus budgeted without any transfer increase. So those were the two proposals that were presented last week on the general fund. One included transfers and the other one didn't.
Okay, so we can discuss that a little bit in further detail in just a little bit. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Mayor. Jessica, I'm just curious a little bit, two issues that jump out at me on this situation. One, the bank charges and finance fees. I'm thinking those are not bank charges, they're more interest. Am I correct?
No, that is not correct. Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Councillor Peggy Sue, the bank charges are for costs that are incurred on our behalf for utilizing Express Bill Pay. So Express Bill Pay is the platform that we have for our constituents to pay their bills online. And so Express Bill Pay charges us per transaction. So depending on the number of transactions for the month, we receive an invoice anywhere between $500 and $800 per month.
Oh, wow. Okay, so that's where
You know,
that 10,000 is.
And my opinion should be that this should be a pass-on cost to our consumers. I think that we shouldn't have to be paying it. You see other entities that charge, if you pay with your card, they automatically charge you a fee for, paying with your card. That they don't absorb the cost. And so that, is something that perhaps that we can look at and see if, if that's something that we're willing to entertain.
Ms. Ortiz, is it feasible that you can communicate with Bill Express if they could possibly pass that cost on to the customer via their website?
We could talk to them and see what their recommendation would be. Definitely.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's a convenience for the customer, and I myself don't mind paying that if it saves me time and energy to have to go physically and do something. So I'm sure other people will feel the same about that. And I think 30,000 for that annually is a bit of a chunk. The other thing that jumped out at me was going up to the healthcare insurance. So the changes you have are 11,237, but that was before we knew that there wasn't going to be an increase, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So that's a mute. That 11,237 will not be changing, correct?
No, it will not change. That is correct.
Okay, so that was the other question that I had. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Ortiz, I had a few other questions. Under the rent of land and buildings, we had budgeted last year 20,000. We continue to budget it, but we didn't spend it. What would we have to rent in terms of land or building that necessitates this being on the budget?
So Honorable Mayor, that line item is specifically for rent of the land with Okiawinge, where our lines reside. They did not bill us this fiscal year, so I don't know if there's an agreement that they're working on, or I guess I would have to defer to Public Works Director Stephen Trujillo on that, or unless City Manager knows anything on that agreement with Okiawinge and our lines.
Well, if that's what it was for and we just weren't billed this time, I think it would be appropriate to keep it there, just to keep it as a place setting. So I was just curious to know where that was going. In the same sort of line of questioning, and I know this would probably be a better question for, let's see, under rent of equipment and machinery, again, we had a $6,500 budget item. We didn't spend any of it. I'm just wondering, is that when we have to maybe rent somebody else's Vector truck or some other type of equipment, and we just didn't have to this last year?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And then I'll continue with one more questioning in the same direction. For vehicles, we made our last payment, and yet it's still showing up under next year's budget. Is there another piece of equipment that we're looking at purchasing and that would potentially be a down payment, or is that something that we can get off of the budget?
So no, right now, as I mentioned, the 63,717 is built into the FY20 budget, and the reason being is because the cost did hit this FY. They hit on July 1st, so that is the start of our fiscal year. So that money has been expended.
Okay.
speaking with the water supervisor, Antonio Chavez, and they actually do have a need for vehicles that was not captured in here. They are taking that before Public Works tonight, is my understanding. And so when we spoke, his understanding was that the money that he had in his budget at the end of FY20 would automatically carry over, which it doesn't. We start new on a fresh budget July 1. And so they do have a request for 3 vehicles, service vehicles, and that's roughly about $108,000 that they would like to add into the budget. So that is not reflected in this material today.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. Councilor
You're
Peggy
welcome.
Sue Martinez?
Thank you. Follow up, Mayor. The maintenance grounds and roadways and the maintenance of buildings and structures at 219,600 and the prior and in the first interim budget, and then we had 52 in the meantime, actually year to date, and then you had this 113 is the one that got transferred down to equipment. But I'm still curious about this 106 600,000. Is that going to be sufficient for buildings and structures? Because if we normally had that higher number at 219, and then I'm just wondering what the drop off was on the year to date actual. Or was it because of the 113 being added into there?
It was that the 113 was added into bringing the total
Okay.
to 219.
Okay, that's fine. I understand totally. And then on the maintenance grounds and roadway, that's to patch up situations where they've worked on water pipes and things like that. And then that money is set to patch up, do the patchwork on things that need to be rectified after they've been opened up. Is that what that's for?
Correct. Yes.
So why do we have that change of 6,200 when it seems like to me like that's something that we really need to be careful with, because the worst thing is to open up somebody's street and then leave it open. And I'm experiencing that on my street right now, and it's not very fun to have that situation happen to you on a nice paved road. So I'm just a little curious about that 55,000 number and why we lowered it by 6,000. Can you give me an idea about that?
Yes, the reason I lowered it from the 61,000 was I had looked at actuals and we had actually only spent 37,000. We did, as I mentioned, have an increase in our insurances of 20%. So I kind of balanced it out, took money, from there to add into the insurance line item to increase that one rather than increasing the overall budget.
If I may, I'd actually like to agree that it's important to maintain the roads after we have to cut any water lines. So I would seriously consider maybe throwing that back in there, given it isn't changing. And I know that things are already tight, and it's hard to use any dollar amount and we don't change it flippantly, but I think that's another important item that does need to remain a serious focus of ours.
Thank you both.
We have a question from Councillor John Ramon Vigil.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a follow-up about the maintenance grounds and roadways line item. Jessica, when we do a connection fee, we charge also for the pavement cut. Does any of that fund come back into the maintenance and grounds and roadways line item, or does it just go to the connection?
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Councillor John Ramon Vigil, when they pay us for these connects, the money goes into the revenue line item. So those were the first line items that we reviewed, which in essence, it balances out with the expenditure side.
But my concern is when people are paying for a pavement cut, shouldn't that money go back into fixing the road that they've cut into?
And it does. Of course, they are going to fix the pavement cut, but you won't see that money going back into the expenditure line item. That money rolls into the revenue line items.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Ms. Ortiz. You can continue.
Mayor.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't see whose hand was that?
Mine, Mayor, Councilor Benavides, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're perfect. Thank you very much for showing the raised hand.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Just a couple of quick comments, one being the bill pay option. Jessica, I'm assuming that that bill pay option was put together through a company because we had customers requesting to pay online through our website and we didn't have that feature. The thing about bill pay is if we were to instruct clients to go to their bank and set it up through their bank, the cost would be incurred by the customer. So I think that maybe what we might want to talk about doing is putting a little to-do list project on our IT staff. Maybe it's something that we can set up on our website so that we could collect those payments and rid ourselves of that huge fee. Secondly, along the same lines, there's cost for postage. Because I use that service, I know for a fact that it's a great service, but I still get a hard copy bill. So we could probably think about not sending those hard copy bills to those clients that use the service and save some monies on postage as well. Something else to put on the to-do list. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, you can continue, Ms. Ortiz.
Okay, so this wraps up the water fund. Do you have any questions in regard to revenues, expenditures, the amount of prior year cash or anything in regards to water, the water fund?
No, and if you could, Ms. Ortiz, remember we have about 18 minutes left before the end of the meeting, so I apologize. We'll just have to kind of make the points on this one a little bit more succinct.
Okay, so if you have no further questions, then we can move on to the wastewater fund. So again, much similar to the water fund, we have only collected through May as we just finished our billing for the month of June. So this is looking at an annualized return. Looking at our government grocery receipts collected, we had a budget of 103,227. We are looking at projected revenue of 131,471. Wastewater service fees, we had an annual budget of 2,073,922. We are looking at an annualized return of 1,935,845. Penalties and interest, we have a budget of 51,568, looking at projected revenue of 36,423. And our wastewater connection fees, an annual budget of 18,980. Looking at projected revenue of 37,421, again, based on annualized return. Miscellaneous water fees of a budget of 5,000, projected revenue of 3,891. We've included prior year cash that has been rolled over in the amount of 758,186, bringing a total fund revenue, projected revenue of $2,903,237. Looking at our expenditures, again, they too are budgeted based on the max, based on the pay plan. So you can see a budget of 654,000. They've spent 518. And looking at a proposed budget of 728,000. The overtime wages, they had a budget of 30,000. They requested that that be increased by 20,000. So a projected proposed budget of 50,000. Standby pay is a flat budget of 15,600. Your FICA, para, healthcare, retiree, comp is all based on actual labor. So, you know, those numbers can change based on the actual full-time position line item. Mileage is at $500. Per diem is at $2,000. Maintenance, buildings and structures of $20,000. Maintenance contracts of $15,000. Maintenance grounds and roadways of $11,000. Maintenance vehicle of $10,000. Maintenance equipment of $60,000. Audit contract of $12,000. Professional services of $35,000. Contractual services $119,050. Office supplies $10,500. Medical supplies $2,000. Field supplies $8,000. Janitorial supplies of $3,000. Chemical supplies of $40,000. Non-capital equipment of $12,900. Safety equipment $9,300. uniforms, 13,200, gas and diesel fuel, 10,000, communication costs of 1,500, employee professional development, 3,500, government gross receipts paid of 51,771, insurance premiums to account for the 20% increase, 113,000, postage costs of 15,000, freight and courier of 2,020, printing and publishing 1,000, advertising 1,000, rent of land and buildings 15,000. Again, this is for the Okiawinge real estate. Dues of 1,000, natural gas utility charges of 5,000, our electric utility charges for the wastewater treatment plant of 290,000, and equipment and machinery. We had it initially built in for 451,000. That was to account for the brown bear and the loader. And so right now, when we met with the departments, they only had a request for a camera truck, which was about 280,000. However, in speaking with Antonio this afternoon, there is an item that's going before the Public Works this evening. He did say it was an emergency item that needed to be procured, and it was a grit chamber. So that was roughly about 60,000. So that is not reflected in this proposal. Transfers going out, we have our debt service of 159,000. That is for the meters that we just recently put in place. We have a transfer out for debt service of 80,925. A transfer out to the general fund administrative fee of 280,000, and then the transfer out to our Espanola 1213 loan with NMFA for 94,129. So looking at total fund expenditures of 2,943,458. That leaves us, when we look at our bottom line revenues to expenditures, of 40,221 negative, which includes the prior year cash of 758,186. If we increase our transfers, as I mentioned earlier, based on the two proposals that were presented last week, that would bring us down to 70,221. The other thing that is not factored in here, and we just received the invoice yesterday, was for our semi-annual payments for the brown bear. So the first payment is due on September 20th. The second payment is due on March 20th. So that's an additional 64K that needs to be factored in for the brown bear payment for the year.
And just to double check before I go to Councilor John Ramon Vihil, that $64,000 payment, that's for one payment, or is it for two payments? If they're semi-annual, does that go into both annual? I mean,
so the semi-annual
per year
payment is 32,000 in September, and then another 32,000 in March.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Councilor John Ramon Vihil.
Thank you. I see a water department and wastewater has an advertising line item, 3,000 in water, 1,000 in wastewater, only 846 so far this year. Can you explain what those line items are used for and why wastewater was the only one that used it?
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Councilor John Ramon Vihil. The advertising line items are for any postings that that they're looking to hire. So any advertisements that go into the Rio Grande Sun, the New Mexican, the Albuquerque Journal. And in regards to the one for water, we may have to look back at that because it could have been rolled into the general fund expenses, as HR has an open PO for advertising. So it could have been rolled into that, which should be minimal.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. Just have a question or a couple of questions. Do we have a lot of accounts that are just hooked onto wastewater and not water and are just being billed for wastewater? And if so, are we having the same problem as far as 30-day, 60-day, 90-day delinquencies on those accounts as well? And I have a follow-up.
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Councilor Manny Martinez. Yes, we do have a number of customers that are only connected. I don't have that number. I would have to verify the number with our customer service manager, Danielle Bustos.
Okay, my follow-up, the reason kind of asked that question was because we have a $22,000 line item for postage for water, but then we have another 15,000 postage line item for wastewater. So I'm just trying to think of where that much postage might be going as far as how many customers we have just on wastewater.
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Councilor Manny Martinez. So the postage is split between water and wastewater. So the first 6 months, water will pick up the tab, and then the last 6 months, wastewater picks up the tab for the postage. And it just all depends on the number of items that are being sent out. So anywhere, you know, our postage costs vary on a monthly basis, anywhere from like $1,700 to $1,900 per month.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm curious about the 27,000 on the bank account and the fees that we're getting charged for the internet system. That doesn't get split between both enterprise funds, Jessica?
I'm sorry, yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, those costs are being split.
I'm sorry, Jessica, I didn't understand you. They are being split, or water is encumbering the total cost?
They are being split.
Where are you showing it in wastewater?
I'm sorry, actually, no. So all of those were incurred by the water fund. We have agreed that moving forward, they should be a shared cost between the both funds.
Yeah, and I think the postage also, since it's being sent out in one bill, I understand if it's a ratioed amount, because like Councilor Manny Martinez stated, there are some customers that do receive water and don't receive wastewater services. So in that situation, I understand there being a little bit of a discrepancy with it. But in this situation with that billing, I think it should probably be ratioed also and split accordingly to both different enterprise. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. We're in a split screen, so I can't see if anybody is raising their hand via Zoom. So I think that we've gone over the enterprise fund quite well. Do any other counselors have any questions before we adjourn? Or if there's anything that either Ms. Ortiz or Mr. Martinez would like to add? Before we go on, we do have a question from Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez. Go ahead.
I don't have a question, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Jessica and her entire staff for the hard work putting this all together. I know we sort of got it sort of late, and we didn't really work on it as much as we should have in the very beginning. I hope we do better in the next round with starting with the budget work earlier and really understanding things deeply. But I certainly appreciate all the work that the staff is doing. The CM, thank you so much for your answers and for everything that you're doing. Thank you for working with the public concerning the situation with late billing and things like that. And I think given everything, we're gonna be okay. So I really appreciate everybody's hard work.
Go ahead. You have the floor, Mr. Martinez.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body. I'd like to finish off this with, we did go over all the enterprise, so I'd like to coordinate with everybody here to see when the next work session would work for everybody's schedule. I know that next Tuesday we have our full council meeting, which is July 14th. We're working on that agenda currently. So I open up to the floor with recommendations as to when the governing body would like to meet to propose another work session to finalize this budget.
I would like to either do it during next week's meeting. I don't remember what we have on that agenda. And if not on Tuesday, if we could at least do it on Wednesday or Thursday. Sometimes I think it's better if we concentrate only on the budget. I think that works better on at least my mind. So I would probably prefer to do either a Wednesday or probably Thursday. I won't be able to do Wednesday.
Just honorable mayor, members of the governing body, just to make everybody aware that we have to present our approved budget by the governing body by the 31st of this month. So we would like to have this as the agenda for final approval for July 28th. I know that's cutting it a little bit close, but I know it's doable. We've had several great work sessions to kind of work out the kinks, but I'm open to suggestions, but that's kind of where we're, the time frame that we're leading to.
Councilor Manny Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to request though that we do get an updated budget as far as any changes that have been made, so that we can review it before the actual meeting. So that way, if we do have questions, maybe we can actually go through this maybe a little bit faster.
Thank you. And then also to keep everybody apprised, we should be getting information for the May gross receipts on or about the 17th of July, which would be, I believe, next Friday. So that's something that we would, be anticipating, so we could have the meeting right before that, and then very shortly thereafter as well. So just to keep that in everybody's frame of mind, we could also wait until the 21st, which is that's a finance board meeting. It isn't a scheduled meeting anyway. Right. So I'm thinking the 21st might work out quite well. That's 2 weeks from today. That'll give us hopefully some updated information from gross receipts in May. We'll have time to update the agenda. I'm sorry, the budget. And that way, if we have any questions or commentary or communication, we can also send that to each other via email. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
I agree with you, Mayor. I think on the 21st is probably the best day, just because we'll have those main numbers in and we'll be able to have a little bit better idea of where we're at total. So I think that's probably best to go ahead and wait until that happens. So I'm fine for that day.
I'd just like to express, one final thing. I think when we look at these numbers, everybody's working really hard to make them work, but we still have to keep a couple things into consideration. One of them is we're using not just last year's cash, but accumulated cash over many, many years. So if the budget worked out exactly the way that it's supposed to right now, we will have wiped out our entire amount of accumulated cash. So that's something to truly take into consideration and take a deep breath about. In addition to that, I'd just like to really show some reservation about what the rest of the year is going to look like. I know that we've been very fortunate to have our numbers come in a little bit stronger than anticipated, certainly stronger than some of the other municipalities around us. But just with the recognition that I see a lot of things in the economy that I don't like, I have I have a lot of reservation about what the rest of the next year is going to look like. So those are just my words of encouragement to keep looking at ways to find ways to cut in the budget things that we can, or shift or move around, or be as creative as we can. That's just my personal opinion. So I think for now we will meet on the 21st. Do any other councilors have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I guess we should technically approve the agenda before we actually adjourn. I don't know if we need to do that. Can we do that? I apologize. We never got an approval of the agenda. Can we do can we hear a motion for that?
So move, Mayor.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilor Manny Martinez and a second from Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez. Can we take a roll call vote?
Councilor Justin Salazar Torres. Counselor John Ramon Vihil,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar,
Yes.
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
Yes.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
Yes.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Denise.
Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, are you there?
I have a total of 4 votes. Counselor Manny. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, motion carries.
All right, now do we hear a motion to adjourn, please?
Mayor, you're muted.
Thank you so much. And now that you're back on, can you vote for the agenda?
Me, sure.
Yes, you were muted as well, I think.
Oh, I thought she was calling on Manny. I was waiting for him to vote and I couldn't hear you guys after that. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay.
Absolutely,
Now we-
yes. And then I have
Alright.
a request. We've had these budgets discussion only. I think at the end of the next workshop, we should be ready to send it with whatever changes we make at that meeting to full council for full approval. So I think at the next meeting, we should be able to sort of adjust things if we feel like we need to. So maybe discussion and action.
We can look at that. I think the important thing is to send it to full council, and then even at that last council meeting, we can make changes if we need to. And that's the one that we have to place a vote on to send to the state. So I think we're doing okay by just making all of the adjustments and the changes that we need to. And if you have
I think if we
strong
have the
considerations
opportunity
about
to
it,
make
then you
some
can.
changes at
I'm
the
sorry,
next
hold on one
meeting.
second. Hold on,
Okay.
I was just gonna say that what I think is important is we collectively work on agreeing to what those changes should be. And if we want to, then we, change that and say we're gonna finally vote on it. Ms. Ortiz had something to say as well, and then we'll go back to you, Counselor.
Honorable Mayor, members of the governing body, my recommendation would be that we would have a vote on the 21st, because that'll allow my staff to go in and have to do what we need to do in LGBMS, which is not a very easy system to deal with. And that way we can get everything mapped over based on the chart of accounts that we need to for DFA. So it's gonna take a little more than 3 days to get that submitted. So I would appreciate if we could at least have a vote by the 21st, which is our finance board, meeting.
Okay, all right, I apologize. So yes, Counselor, we'll go ahead and do that with a vote for the 21st. Now, Jessica, Ms. Ortiz, we can also make any changes that we need to, but you just need the general large amounts in there, and then any changes you can make thereafter. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, very good. Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez?
I'm fine with all of that, Mayor. Thank you so much.
Okay, you got it. All right, very good. This meeting is now adjourned.